Hello, and howdy, and welcome to She's Fixin' to Write This Here Murder, y'all. The only post-apocalyptic Murder, She Wrote podcast with a title in dire need of search engine optimization. I'm speaking to you from within a lean-to shack thing, which is located somewhere in the wasteland of Central Texas, which is located in an alternate universe, which is parallel or maybe perpendicular to your own. And everything sucks here. If you're hearing my voice, then I have successfully transmitted this here MP3 through the interdimensional ether by stuffing a ham radio into a modified microwave oven and indiscriminately blasting packets across space-time via the AMPRnet protocol. It's all very complicated and vague, and I didn't come up with it. I'm just standing on the shoulders of giants. Giant nerds, specifically. Thankfully, there are quite a few of those lurking in the remains of the local university. And they'll do almost anything for food. Or hentai. I'm Scorpion, your lugubrious sesquipedalian host. Although lately I've been calling myself Hamburger Helpless, because I feel like slimy meat macaroni. Emotionally. I found that life in the wasteland is a seemingly endless cycle of pain, misery, and boredom, interspersed with ephemeral moments of joy and existential catharsis. But you can't really take comfort in these fleeting moments of beauty because they're an illusion orchestrated by your brainstem to distract you from the fact that you're a point of consciousness trapped in a failing meat vessel on its way to oblivion. Speaking of meat, I've been having weird meat-centric dreams lately. Nowadays, with resources being quite limited, raising livestock on a large scale is basically impossible. So, traditional foods like beef or pork aren't widely available, and people are vegetarian out of necessity. And this is unfortunate because I've had a hankering for bacon lately, and that hankering has bled over into my very frustrating dreams. They're frustrating because they all prominently feature bacon, but the bacon is on a plate which is always just out of reach. And it's that voodoo skeleton guy Sam D who holds the plate, and he's carrying it through an enormous room filled with, I guess it's everyone I've ever known and loved. And Sam D is always just a few steps ahead of me. But the people from my past are all trying to speak to and or embrace me, and they just refuse to get out of the fucking way. And when I go to push past, they instantly turn to dust and collapse. And it's really annoying because I end up covered in the stuff, and I can't keep track of the bacon since I'm enveloped in a haze of pulverized former friends. Eventually, I realize that the bacon is gone and probably covered in dust anyway, so I give up and turn to leave, but find myself standing in a shadowy void with dust piling up all around me, and the only thing I can hear is the sound of crying, which I somehow know to be the lamentations of all the people I've ever abandoned, and I'm just trudging endlessly through the dust until I'm buried up to my torso, and I start thrashing around, but I can't see or even draw breath anymore, and then an unknown voice whispers something which I can never seem to recall, and then I wake up screaming and find that I'm drenched in piss again. Well, when I woke up today, I decided that I'd had enough, and it was time to confront my subconscious. So I went to the meat exchange. After changing pants and hanging my sleeping bag out to dry, of course. Anyway, it's basically just a market specializing in meats, except people sometimes trade one kind of meat for another, and there's some meat optioning and meat future speculation going on, but that's way over my head. I just went there to see if I could find some bacon. Bona fide Big B bacon, not a bacon-like unspecified air quotes meat product. And you have to be wary because there are a lot of those now. Basically, any living thing that stands in one spot for too long will soon find itself a meat. And this market is where all of Austin's grisly, gamey bounty ends up. We're talking grackles, squirrels, trash cats, armadillos, wasteland lobsters, aka mutant crawdads, snakes, very large bugs, or lots of smaller bugs squished together, and so on and so forth. But for all that, I couldn't locate anything pig-based and edible. However, I did see a guy selling what he claimed was elephant meat. He kept saying, "It's a taste you'll never forget," which was kind of amusing, but not very appetizing. Well, there was a lady with some pig parts there, but you could tell they'd been around for a while. You could tell by all the black spots and the eye-watering vapors emanating from her folding table. For future reference, sticking a cooler into a hole in the ground does not a refrigerator make. This lady also left a lot to be desired in the customer service department. I asked about a small, relatively okay-looking bit, and she wanted 30 Playboys or the equivalent value in canned beans. And when I presented my counteroffer of a slightly pulverized bag of Funyuns, she told me not to lowball her because she knows what she's got. Well, what she's got are the unwanted portions of a rotting hog carcass laid out on an uncovered tarp. But I wasn't going to stand there bickering with her because the sun came out and I thought I was going to throw up. So I moved on and found a guy with a wheelbarrow full of freshly butchered something. The sign said pork, but one of the pieces had a Tweety Bird tattoo on it. And when I asked him where it came from, he said he didn't speak English. But I don't think that was true, because I walked by later and saw him reading a copy of Atlas Shrugged. Anyway, he was charging less for his mystery meat, but it was still way out of my price range. I tried offering him 4 cans of RC Cola and a pristine moon pie, but he laughed in my face. So I gave up any hope of getting actual bacon and settled for some canine asada tacos. However, as I ate them, I pretended it was bacon and said, "Boy, this bacon sure is good," and stuff like that. I reckon that'll trick my subconscious into keeping my britches dry, and this may be the first time that majoring in psychology has actually come in useful. For anyone. In all of human history. At that point, I ran into somebody that I used to know, like in that one song by Goiter. I used to live in a commune with this person, but I left. Well, he hugged me and wanted to catch up, just like in the nightmares. He was asking me how I was getting on and which commune I was with now, etc. I explained that I'm a single now, a lone survivor, kind of a wandering weirdo hermit type. And then I launched into a rambling description of this podcast and gave him the old elevator pitch, but I didn't do a very good job because I was tripping over my words and it was pretty awkward because he seemed confused and also kind of worried about me. But he said that it sounds neat and asked how many listeners I had, and I said at least 2, but they're from an alternate universe. And then he nodded and patted me on the shoulder and said, "That's very nice, Christian." And then I thanked him, but I couldn't remember his name, so I just called him Pal. Then he started telling me what everyone was up to and how people still talk about me and some other stuff which I didn't catch because I started thinking about the past and was overcome by a sense of longing for some of those ephemeral moments of beauty which I mentioned earlier. Despite our turbulent past, humans are still social creatures, and I am unfortunately human. So I've had to work very hard to overcome this biological affliction. And in exchange for a life of solitude, I've had to come to terms with the fact that I don't really care about other people because I'm an awful selfish person. They say no man is an island, and that rings true, but no one's ever said that a man can't be a peninsula, and that's how this conversation made me feel. Like a man island with a tenuous connection to the mainland of human society, what's left of it anyway. Originally, I assumed that my antisocial behavior was the result of my inability to accept and process my feelings regarding... Now I'm pretty sure I was just bored. And it turns out that I'm just a malcontent, misanthrope, malingering man-boy whose most notable quality is his debilitating generalized apathy. So it seems I was always destined to wander alone through some sort of wasteland, literal or spiritual. When my attention finally drifted back to the conversation, I found that my acquaintance had gone quiet and was wearing an expectant look as if awaiting a response of some kind. I went with, "Huh?" So he restated his question, and his question was, "Are you doing anything for BC Day?" This came as a surprise to me because I hadn't bothered to keep track of the date and didn't realize BC Day was coming up. You see, following the Big Oopsie, the remnants of humanity split off into numerous subgroups, ostensibly for the purpose of mutual benefit and survival. However, even at the best of times, humans are motivated by all sorts of irrational agendas and are just pretty stupid in general. While fighting for resources in a post-apocalyptic hellscape didn't help matters, and neither did geographical isolation and the difficulties of communication between these groups. Thus, everyone decided it was a good time to degenerate into communes and cults and gangs and so on, each with their own beliefs and ideologies and weird fashion preferences. As such, there's no consensus on the present date, and no consensus on which calendar we should even use. Some people still use the old systems, like the Chinese or the Hijri or the Gregorian calendars, but there's a whole host of new calendars too, which I know nothing about because I can't be bothered. Besides the Gregorian calendar, the one I'm most familiar with is the Greg calendar, which is the system that we used in the commune. The Greg calendar is based on and functionally identical to the Gregorian. Greg just decided that he didn't like the old names for the days and months. Greg was our historian/storykeeper/registrar, and he refused to use the traditional names because he was an old curmudgeon. People eventually got tired of arguing with him and being completely confused all the time, so we had a meeting and agreed to adopt his dumb system. Also, his name is Greg, so it just vibed. Well, once people realized they could just make shit up like that, everyone started inventing new holidays and festivals and such, while also ditching a lot of the old crusty ones. Overall, this turned out to be good for morale and community togetherness. considering everything we'd been through, it was fitting to make a fresh start with holidays which were actually relevant to our new lives. There were holidays for all sorts of little things, to appreciate one another and to celebrate the things which helped us to survive. We also had somber days of remembrance, to commemorate the things we lost, and to learn from all the little oopsies which led to the big oopsie. Finally, we had the festivals of purification. That is, purification through knowledge, suppression, or blood, respectively. These were probably the most important holidays because they resulted in tangible benefits for our community. On purification days, the whole commune would come together to train with weapons, discuss our beliefs, practice siege warfare, purge dissenters, go crusading, and so on. Well, BC Day is all of those things rolled up into one exciting event. In the old system, the 19th of January would be Confederate Memorial Day. That is a bullshit garbage holiday, so with the Gregg calendar, January becomes the month of I miss indoor heating, and the 19th is the day of bigots' contrition. Originally, this was celebrated by everyone taking up arms and marching to the nearest known bastion of backwards, isolationist, race-obsessed idiots. Obviously, there was a bit of recon done in the lead up to this. We'd also bring along our multimedia wagon, which was basically an old speaker system plus Sparky, the community generator. Then we'd dig in outside their fort or whatever and blast an annoying pre-oopsie song on repeat. It was a different song every year. We did Barbie Girl by Aqua one time, and We Like to Party by Vanga Boys, the Macarena by whoever birthed that. Between repeats, we'd take turns yelling about how dumb we thought they were, and also, shooting at them. We also had an old t-shirt cannon, which we used to fire propaganda leaflets over the walls. As you can probably imagine, it was a lot of fun. When we eventually got bored and or drunk enough, we'd rig up an old truck to plow through their gate. Then we'd enter the breach and slap their shit around for a while. For the record, we never stole anything, unless you count abduction as stealing. But we only took children for re-education purposes, and we only hurt them a little bit, just enough to kickstart the Stockholms. Then they became valued members of the community. It was for their own good. Anyhowdy, I told my acquaintance that I had no plans for BC Day, so he invited me to come celebrate with the commune. Well, I said I'd have to check my schedule, and that I had to go now because I was tired of talking to him. Then I just sort of wandered off into the woods to consider his proposition. Well, I considered it all the way back to this hut, and I'm still considering it. But I haven't reached a decision because anxiety. I could use advice and emotional support, but the only person I can rely on these days is Jessica Beatrice Fletcher. So, I think the most reasonable course of action is to watch Murder, She Wrote, Season 1, Episode 3, which first aired on October 28, 1984, and is titled Hooray for Homicide. Transition. Our story opens in Cabot Cove, Maine, the picturesque hometown of Jessica Fletcher, author and main character. Jessica approaches what appears to be a person sitting in a rocking chair who she proceeds to mercilessly garrote from behind.
I've decided to go back to the bayonet. It's a lot cleaner.
How's that?
Oh, I was just talking to myself. Nothing.
Well, it turns out to be a homunculus made of pillows or something with a ball cap on its noggin. And she's just getting some hands-on murder experience for the book she's writing. For some unfathomable reason, she's decided that a bayonet is a cleaner murder weapon than a strangling string. And this makes absolutely no sense because the human body is full of blood! As Jessica returns to her typewriter, we see that her friend Ethan Craig is working under the kitchen sink. When we first met Ethan in episode 1, I called him a bootleg Andy Griffith, and I stand by that assessment. We also see that he has a tattoo of a unicorn in his tramp stamp zone. Apparently, Ethan's repair involves scraping a wrench back and forth on the bottom of the bowl because he's making an inordinate amount of fucking noise.
Ethan! I'm sorry. I'm trying to write.
That's all right. You're not disturbing me.
At this point, the phone rings, and Jessica's friend Agnes tells her to turn on the TV, which she do. Conveniently, it's already on the right channel, probably because the TV is old as hell and the knob can only select between 5 possible channels. The Veletizian shows an interview with a film producer producing an adaptation of one of Jessica's books.
Jerry, why do we call you Hollywood's most controversial producer? Oh, because you hate my pictures. The critics hate my pictures. Everybody hates my pictures except the public.
And today you started shooting a new motion picture.
Yes, J.B. Fletcher's The Corpse Danced at Midnight.
Now, the Fletcher book was a big success. Do you anticipate another box office hit?
It's got everything today's young moviegoers want. Music, sex, and violence.
Too much violence, perhaps?
What's too much?
I'm referring to the scene where the psychotic killer uses a flamethrower on a group of breakdancers.
That's not my story. I didn't write that.
Want to scare the kiddies?
Looks like that Mr. Lydecker's putting some of his own ideas into the movie.
Well, it's high time they heard some of my ideas.
Calling the TV station?
My publisher. I'm going to put a stop to this nonsense, even if I have to fly out to Hollywood.
Well, I guess her publisher is inept because we then cut to an insert shot of a plane landing. She's left her small town and come to the big shitty. And so we're back in California. Jessica meets with one Mr. Strindberg, attorney at law, as opposed to attorney at sea or something, I guess.
What do I know about the picture? Well, it's guaranteed box office magic, that's all. It's a combination of Halloween, Porky's, and Flashdance.
You can't be serious.
Oh, yeah, you've got yourself a hot property here, Mrs. Fletcher. You ought to follow it up real quick. Have you written any other books like this?
I've never written one book like that. Look, I don't know what my publisher told you, Mr. Strindberg, but I didn't come out here to take advantage of an intolerable situation.
Are you saying you don't want a piece of the action?
No, Jessica doesn't want to make a deal. She wants to legal the shit out of the producer for bastardizing her book. Strindberg blows her off, saying he'll get right on it as he nudges her towards the door.
We'll be in touch.
When?
Well, don't worry about it. Relax, enjoy yourself. Is this your first trip to L.A.?
Oh, yes, but I want to get this thing settled.
Well, you're gonna love it. You should go to Disneyland, Farmer's Market, take a Hollywood tour, La Brea Tar Pits, have a ball.
I don't have time.
Mrs. Fletcher, it has been great meeting you.
Cut to Jessica outside the film studio that's creating this cinematic abortion of massive proportion. She's bickering with the guard at the front gate when the film's costume designer, Marta, pulls up.
Hold it, Paddy. I'll vouch for Mrs. Fletcher. Put it down as my guest.
Sure thing, Miss.
Hop in.
That is so nice of you. Thank you.
Jessica's in, and we see that she has a grenade in her purse. I made that up. Next, we see Jerry Lydecker, the producer, enter the trailer of Eve, the film star, who he proceeds to intimidate the shit out of because she's also his girlfriend or something.
Eve, I know you're seeing some guy.
No.
I don't want to know who he is. Just stop.
Jerry.
Stop, you hear me? You're doing okay, Eve. Couple of nice pictures. But you're not there yet. When this picture's released, you're gonna be a big star. There won't be any room in your life for anybody else.
Miss Crystal.
I'm your future, Eve.
Miss Crystal?
Remember that.
We're ready for rehearsal, Miss Crystal.
She'll be right out.
Okay, sure. Whenever she's ready, Mr. Lydecker.
Jerry is played by John Saxon, who is perfect for this role because he's the most sinister-looking man I've ever seen. Also, you could land a plane in the space between this guy's hair and eyebrows. Out on the lot, Marta commiserates with Jessica about how shit the movie is turning out to be.
Jerry and the writer did a wonderful job of trashing your story.
Well, I must confess I haven't read it. No one sent me a copy.
Oh, well, I've got an extra one here. Why don't you take this?
Oh, how nice of you.
I hope you have a strong heart, darling, and an even stronger stomach.
We then see Jerry being chased down by Alan, the writer of the screenplay. Alan starts out relatively gruntled, but quickly becomes disgruntled.
Jerry! How come you never return my telephone calls?
Nothing personal. I don't return anybody's calls.
That's a good line. I'll use it. Listen, my contracts finally came through. For the points you promised me for writing the screenplay under price, well, they're not there. What happened?
Business affairs.
Oh, just a mistake, huh?
They said it was more than you were worth.
Listen, that's my screenplay you're shooting in there, and what would you do without it?
Tell me about your Oscar nomination when you were 25.
You know my credits.
Yeah, I know your credits. Aging wonderkin, burned out by pills and booze before you were 30.
Look, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm also a damn good writer, and you know that, too.
Yeah? That's why I had to do a page 1 rewrite on your script.
You cut out every line that required acting skills so you could get your little playmate on the screen.
Buddy boy, you just wrote your ticket off this lot. I don't want you around. You're bad news.
Yeah? Well, just remember, the picture's not over till the credits roll.
Well, we already have our most obvious victim. Now we just need him to get murdered.
I have a wonderful surprise for you. I would like you to meet Jessica Fletcher, who is the original author.
Hey, pleased to meet you. Marta, we got a problem.
Excuse me, Mr. Lydecker, but at your convenience, I'd like a few minutes of your time to talk about our picture.
Maybe later, okay?
Well, could you be more specific? I mean, after all, this is something of great importance to me.
My office, first thing after lunch, all right?
Thank you.
Jessica wanders into the studio, and we see the director doing his job.
Jenny is earthy, sexy, sensual. She's a wild female animal who will do anything for the boy that she loves.
But why does he want to do it in a cemetery? It's sick.
Yes, but remember, his friends have been horribly murdered. He's defying death with an act of joy.
Then he knows the killer's watching?
No, sweetheart, it's symbolic. He's in this cold, grim, dead place with this wild, warm, compliant woman.
Sounds kinky.
No, it's rich.
Hi.
How are you?
Good?
Good. Hey, Ross, listen up. I'm sorry I'm late. Those stupid makeup people wanted to put body makeup all over me. I mean, can you believe it with my tan?
Oh, you look great, Scott. Do you have any questions about the scene?
We make love.
The director then calls for the set to be cleared so that they can shoot the nude scene, and a PA comes by to hustle a bewildered Jessica away. Cut to Jerry's office, where Jessica gives him a big angry piece of her mind.
Nudity is necessary for the story. It reveals Jenny's true character.
In my story, Jenny was Johnny, the 10-year-old son of a Presbyterian minister. And he didn't take off his shirt in 200 pages.
So I made a few changes.
He tells her he's turning her boring book into a big-time hit picture, baby. He only bought it for the name, The Corpse Dances at Midnight, baby. And she can't do nothing about it because she signed away the rights. Baby. He's not actually saying baby, but I think it's implied.
You can't stop me from doing whatever I want to your story.
Just because the Almighty gave people a taste for lobsters doesn't mean that he gave lobsters a taste for being boiled alive. I'm sorry, Mr. Lydecker, but I'm going to do whatever I have to do to stop this picture being made.
This is the third lobster-based analogy she's used in as many episodes. I should probably start keeping a tally. Or a tally. A lobster tally. Sorry, that was unclawed for. I better move on. At her hotel, Jessica is ambling around in a bathrobe when there's a knock at the door. It turns out to be a bashful junior partner from the law firm.
Marty Strimberg sent me.
Oh, come inside, please.
Thank you.
Sorry if I look disappointed, but I was expecting a pot of tea and room service with some aspirin. I saw Mr. Lydecker today, and I'm afraid that I completely lost my temper with him.
As well. he has that effect on people.
Apparently, Jessica considers being slightly indignant as losing her temper, which is cute. Junior has managed to dig up Jessica's contract.
I can't believe that I signed this. Mr. Lydecker was correct. I signed away my right to interfere with the film. Oh, I feel so foolish. Well, I guess there's nothing else to do but to make amends.
Make what?
As painful as it sounds, I owe Mr. Lydecker an apology.
Jessica heads back to Jerry's office, where she asks his callous secretary where he be. Then Jessica says she must find him, in an incriminatingly vague way.
What I must do cannot be done on the telephone. Excuse me.
Jessica ventures onto the dark and deserted set, where, in the middle of a styrofoam graveyard, she discovers Jerry's dead ass laid out on the AstroTurf. Next to the body, we see a big metal vase thing, which looks like it would bonk someone on the head real good. We also see a giant, gaudy gold button next to a sign which says, The MacGuffin. Jessica speedwalks to get help and bumps into a comically skeptical security guard. She then acts weirdly suspicious, which I assume is necessary for the plot to do its thing.
How come you're sneaking around a deserted soundstage?
Oh, I was going to get the police. There's been a dreadful accident here on the set.
Yeah, well, why don't we just go have a look, huh?
It's right over there. You see, right there behind the stone.
Mr. Lydecker.
I'm afraid he's dead. I believe he was hit over the head with that heavy metal urn.
Security, we have a murder on stage 3.
Say what?
Murder, Charlie. I think I got a hold of the killer.
We then cut to a very small man examining the body. He turns out to be a detective called Mike Hernandez. And instead of being arrested, Jessica is apparently free to wander around the set looking for that dang button. Eventually, Hernandez works up the courage to confront her. Or confront her pelvis, really, because that's about where his eye level is.
Did you lose something? A gold button with a very interesting design, only I didn't lose it. I found it right there, next to the body.
Okay, come on. Let me see it.
Well, I certainly didn't pick it up. I left it right there untouched. It could be a very valuable clue.
I don't see any gold button.
Well, neither do I, but it was right there. When I went to call for help, I was only gone about 30 seconds.
So the button disappeared in 30 seconds?
Maybe the killer was hiding behind the set. Now, he saw me find it, and he realized that it could be incriminating, so he grabbed it while I was talking to the guard, and then he slipped out of the building.
I see, that's a very interesting theory. Do you have any thoughts about the Jimmy Hoffa disappearance?
There's no need to be sarcastic, Lieutenant. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Hernandez, Mike Hernandez, and you are?
Oh, Jessica Fletcher.
Fletcher? Isn't that the guy who wrote the book that the Lidecker was filming? Got a couple of initials up front. What?
J.B. B for Beatrice.
That's you, isn't it?
This detective is either very slow or very sleepy, and I can't tell which. Then Jessica demonstrates her knack for delusional self-assessment once again.
Do you have any theories about the murder?
Oh, I leave theories to the experts, Lieutenant. I'm only a mystery writer. I'm not a detective.
She keeps doing this and saying stuff like, "Oh, I'm not being nosy. By the way, what did you eat last night, you fuck?" At this point, Marta and the director stop by.
Hey, what the hell is going on in here?
Well, wait a minute. Whoa, hold it. Lieutenant Hernandez, who are you?
Ross Healy, I'm directing this picture. This is Marta Quintessa. She's doing the costumes.
Why are all you police here?
Hasn't anybody told you yet?
No, Lieutenant. We were in the ladies' wardrobe going over the costume changes. Heard the sirens, went outside, saw the police car in front of the soundstage.
Ross, I think there's been an accident.
They're practically standing on top of the body when they ask what's going on, and that alibi left the director's mouth like it was spring-loaded. Hernandez points out the body they're within spitting distance of, and Marta actually swoons.
Oh, take it easy. Brody, come over here.
They have to be the killers, right? I mean, they're feigning innocence so hard it's practically satire. Only I can't tell if it's obvious because it's a feint or because the writing is bad. I write this one scene at a time, so we'll find out together. It's like you're here with me, and we're on the couch, cuddling, because we're dating. And I swear to God, if you start talking in the middle of the important scenes, I'll leave you. You're pretty, but not that pretty. And I'm telling you right now, we're having pork chops for dinner. Yes, again. That's what happens when you don't contribute ideas, sugar honey puss. I miss being in love. And pork chops.
Do either of you know anybody who might have had a reason to kill Lidecker?
Anybody? What about everybody? Would the suspects please form a double line?
Lieutenant, Jerry was not exactly America's sweetheart. Particularly after he started this movie. I mean, even his best friends were beginning to hate him. By the way, Lieutenant, sorry to bring this up, but shouldn't someone tell our star that her star maker has gone to his maker?
They are especially quipful considering the situation, and I think the screenwriters must have had a list of plot points they're required to hit because they checked the everyone's a suspect because everyone hated them box each episode. I could probably start making up a bingo card. Or rather, you could, because I can't be arsed. At this point, there's a consensus that someone should tell Eve. But, oh, shucks, we've all got appointments and/or bathroom problems. So, Jessica somehow gets wrangled into doing it.
Oh, dear. I wouldn't want to hear it on the 11 o'clock news.
I agree. You tell her.
But I thought the police were supposed to do that.
Not if we can get somebody. Look, J.B., I'd appreciate it. I'm going to be tied up here for quite a while. If you don't mind, I'll get somebody to drive you, okay?
Very well, I'll do it. I'll take care of it.
Marta tells Jessica that Eve lives at Why are there so many names? Why do people need all these goddamn names? Let me try that again. Our protagonist, on the recommendation of the deuteragonist, goes to the antagonist's beach house to find the tritagonist. That was much better. At the bungalow, Jessica introduces herself to a very intoxicated Eve. And apparently Eve was raised right because she hospitably offers Jessica some scotch and a handful of pills. Jessica takes 2 baby blues and washes them down with an admirable pull straight from the bottle. Then she tells Eve that she's here for something important.
I'll drink to that. can't seem to hold my liquor today. That's a joke. Did Jerry send you here?
Eve is spilling liquor all over herself and giggling like a manic pixie nightmare girl. Well, Jessica decides not to harsh Eve's mellow, so they end up just hanging out. We get a montage of them walking down the beach where they encounter some surfers. Jessica borrows a board and does a surf. We see a bitchin' cut back into a pocket, but then she pearls it and gets worked. Major bogus. When she climbs out on shore, she grins and we see that one of her front teeth got knocked out. Then we see Eve and Jessica stumbling around at an impromptu beach party with the surfers, and then it gets really weird and abstract. It's dark now, and by the light of a bonfire, we see the shadows of several people wrestling, or copulating or something, interspersed with insert shots of waves breaking, fish being gutted, and Jessica's mislaid tooth. Then it's morning. We see a topless Jessica waking up on the roof of the house. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, there's no actual nudity. We just see that her shoulders are bare. However, she is wearing a police officer's hat for some reason. Cut to Jessica dragging a semi-conscious Eve into the bathroom for a cold shower, which I doubt would dispel a Quaalude hangover, but, you know, it's a television show. Jessica sits Eve down and gently breaks the news over her head.
Eve, listen to me. Something tragic happened at the studio after you left. I'm so sorry to have to tell you this, but Mr. Lydecker is dead.
Dead? No, I don't believe it. He can't be dead.
Eve.
Well, what happened? An accident? What?
I'm sorry, Eve, that there's no easy way to tell you. Somebody killed him.
God.
Back at Jessica's hotel, we see a gaggle of journalists ambush her and try to get her thoughts on the murder. Detective Hernandez is there and escorts Jessica through the crowd, by kicking people in the shins, I assume. When they get to her room, Hernandez starts figuratively kicking Jessica in the shins with taxing questions.
Listen, JB, when you discovered the body, did you touch the murder weapon?
The metal urn? Certainly not. I never touched anything.
Well, that's funny. Someone took the trouble to wipe off all the fingerprints. And it's something an ordinary killer in a big hurry to get away probably wouldn't think about. But somebody...
But it's the sort of detail that an experienced mystery writer wouldn't overlook, right?
You said it, JB, not me.
So Hernandez reluctantly tells JB that she's now the prime suspect. And if she can't pin it on someone else, she's coming in. He knows she didn't do it, but the captain... Oh, the captain. He just doesn't understand. And he's on Hernandez like a big angry suit on a very petite man. The chief wants results, goddammit. Now you get out there and bring someone in, Hernandez, or you're off the force. Oh, get out of my sight. I meant leave, not crouch slightly so that you're obscured by that chair, and close the door on your way out. Oh, why am I so old now? That's how I imagine it went anyway.
Lieutenant Hernandez, I have absolutely no intention of trying to help you to solve this murder. I'm going back home to Maine tomorrow on the noon plane. Unless, of course, that is now out of the question.
I thought you might want to stick around. Anyway, to see what Ross Haley does with your picture.
Ross Haley, the director?
Also the producer. As of 2 hours ago, the studio decided to go ahead with The Corpse Danced at Midnight.
Back at the studio, Jessica tracks down Alan, the screenwriter. I say tracks down, but really she's just wandering around the lot and happens to pass by him getting out of his car, which is a very convenient coincidence because their expository conversation is necessary for the rest of the fucking story to happen. Weird.
Hello.
I know you.
Well, we haven't actually met, but I'm Jessica Fletcher.
Oh, sure. I loved your book. I'm just sorry I couldn't put more of it in my screenplay.
So am I.
Alan goes on to tell Jessica, a total stranger, the personal business of all the relevant characters. Well, long, unnecessary story short, Ross Haley, the director, is now also the producer, thanks to the murder.
It was Ross's project from day one until Jerry horned his way in, dragging little Eve behind him. It was a payoff, pure and simple. Ross had to give up his producer's credit or no Eve Crystal. Now things are back to the way they should have been.
I see. You know, it seems to me as if Mr. Lydecker's death may have been a stroke of good luck for Mr. Haley.
For all of us, Mrs. Fletcher. With this picture, we could all make it big. Now, come on, I'll show you.
Alan leads Jessica into the studio where a music video and/or rave is underway. Well, it turns out that Jessica's book has become a movie about corpses literally dancing at midnight, and the dancing is taking place in the middle of a neon graveyard, with like electrified neon gravestones. And the music is actually terrifying, but for a different reason than you might assume. Hello, Jimmy. Listen, I'm directing a new motion picture and we're in need of a very sexy dance song. It has to be totally groovy. Do you understand, Jimmy? We're looking for a real boogie-woogie here. Do you think you and your little band are up to it? I'll give you $5 and this coupon for that Orange Julie's place in the mall, which you seem to like so well. Well, unfortunately, the director's nephew or whatever agreed to do it. And unfortunately, they played this Magnum piss for several minutes. And unfortunately, his synthesizer sounds extremely hurt. I mean, that is definitely the sound of a mortally wounded DX7. Jimmy is obviously not responsible enough to care for a DX7. However, I am. Please send me a DX7.
Cut! Okay, kill the music! Let's start clearing the smoke!
I want some of this neon to pulsate. Get rid of the car, and you have too much smoke over there, not enough here.
I wish I could literally kill that music. Jessica approaches Marta and asks what in the goddamn fuck is going on. Well, there's been some changes to the script. Then Jessica probes her for exposition.
Before Eve wiggled her way into Jerry's heart, I used to live at the beach house.
At this point, Hernandez comes in with a stepladder, which he deploys/employs in order to be seen over the gathered crowd. He's brought Jerry's secretary, Mrs. Finch, along and asks her to point out the person who threatened Jerry. Well, Mrs. Finch screams, "J'accuse!" as she runs up and pokes Jessica in the eye. Figuratively.
She's the one, Mrs. Fletcher.
That's ridiculous. I never threatened him.
Miss Finch, do you recall her exact words?
Yes. She said, "I promise you, Mr. Lydecker, that I will do whatever I have to do to stop you from making this picture."
Oh, well, I admit it sounds rather provocative out of context.
Miss Finch, what did she say to you yesterday when you suggested that she phone Jerry Lydecker instead of coming to see him on the set?
She said, "What I must do cannot be done on the telephone." And then she killed him.
Rubbish.
Then two beefcakes step forward to grab Jessica as if she's a hardened criminal and not a polite old lady. And so she's hauled off to the pokey.
I think I'm under arrest.
At the police station, we see a TV, and on that TV there is an advertisement. And in that advertisement, there is me talking, because this is actually an ad break and I couldn't think of a better transition. I fucking got you. You're dumb. Also, I'm sorry. Well, this week we're sponsored by nothing because no one asked me to do an advertisement. This is either because I haven't released any episodes at the time of this recording, or because the advertisers in your universe don't feel that I represent the values of their brand and/or product. Well, to that I say, come on, give me a shot. I'll make it worth your while. I mean, heck, I did an HJ for a can of spaghetti one time. I can say a few words about your fancy underpants or boner pills or anything, really. Almost anything. I'm not going to do an advertisement for something bad, like eugenics. So don't even bother emailing me if that's what you're selling. Anyway, you just leave it to old Scorpion, he'll do you right. Come on now. Let me give you a demonstration of my services. I recently found an unopened bag of Cheetos in a ditch, so I will do an ad for those. Fuck! This fucking shit is really good. I'm just wild about these compressed corn leavings, and you're a fucking dumb idiot if you don't buy these crunchy orange gnarled witch finger looking treats. And hey, they're apparently incapable of expiring. Now that's quality. Although I might just not remember how they're supposed to taste. I think it was like cheese chemicals. Well, they certainly have the chemical part down. They also taste like the rest of my night will be spent in gastrointestinal distress. And this very special flavor, well, it just lasts and lasts and will not dissipate. Persistence is one of the 7 virtues, I'm pretty sure. So that means that God would love this product. You want to be like God, don't you? Please buy Cheetos. And scene. See, I'm an advertising dynamo, and I am certain I will be hearing from the Cheeto Corporation quite soon. Our next sponsor is Word of Mouth. Please tell other people to listen to my very cool podcast because they don't have a clue what I'm doing. Anyhow, that's it. Back to the show. I'm sorry. We then get an establishing shot of the police station where they're holding Jessica. But when they cut to the interior, it's definitely some random office building from the 70s. There's floor-to-ceiling wood paneling and a very crusty AC unit sticking out of the wall. And it's extremely dark because they don't got no windows in there. Hernandez positions Jessica with her back to a wall and proceeds to take a mugshot with a Polaroid camera. She gives a -1 tooth, toothy grin and raises her fist in solidarity like she's Barbarella. He hands her the photo and a marker and asks her to sign it, which she does. He then leads her into his office and sticks the photo into what I guess is a scrapbook because it says "My Big Friends" on the front in glitter. Then he climbs up into a high chair behind the desk and gives it to her straight.
JB, I'm not gonna book you. At least not now.
Well, why'd you bring me in?
Aha. To throw off the real killer and to give you a chance to do your thing.
Hernandez is the most benevolent and accommodating police officer in the history of the world. It's fucking absurd. I mean, there has got to be something going on with him. I'm thinking he's a pervert? Possibly macrophilia? To be clear, that's not a value judgment. I think everyone has the inalienable right to beat their respective meats to whatever consensually works for them. Let thy freak flag fly shall be the whole of the law. I just think the word pervert is funny and people should use it more. Anyway, he's giving Jessica the benefit of the doubt, but the DA, the DA, they're certain there's enough evidence to convict JB.
And what do you think?
Ah, you see? I know you better than that. And I said to the DA, I said, hey, you watch. This lady is going to clear herself by coming up with the real killer.
And what if I don't?
Well, then we're both in a lot of trouble.
So then, Hernandez just lets her go again. Back at her hotel, she meets with Norman, the junior lawyer guy. He reluctantly tells Jessica that she's banned from the studio on account of her disruptive influence. She then informs him that he will be defending her against that murder charge.
Mrs. Fletcher, I'm not a real lawyer. I'm in show business.
Well, we may be able to avoid it, but it'll take very hard work and a good deal of research. Are you game?
Name it, Mrs. Fletcher. I will do anything to stay out of a courtroom.
Good. Well, Norman, I want you to look into Eve Crystal's medical records, Alan Gebhardt's battle with alcohol and drugs, Ross Haley's financial status, and Marta Quintessa's relationship with Jerry Lidecker.
Mrs. Fletcher, I don't know where to start.
Be resourceful. Meantime, I have a few things to look into at the studio. Do you have any contacts there?
Yes, but it won't do you any good. They won't allow you to set foot on the lot.
Cut to Jessica at the studio, disembarking from a tour tram thing. It's like a golf cart with an erection. Like if a normal golf cart is a flaccid doodle, this is a fully torqued doodle. What I'm saying is that it's long and turgid. At first, Jessica's face is obscured by a big sun hat, which I guess they're implying is a disguise, because she has a sneaky look on her totally exposed face. She's wearing a different dress and a huge hat, and that's it. Like she could have put on big sunglasses or something, to conceal the only part of her appearance that's actually identifiable. I guess they thought their viewers were so dumb they couldn't recognize the main character with glasses on, which is probably valid. In the next scene, Jessica is in a private screening room, and she's being assisted by a Mr. Lester, Norman's projectionist uncle. Mr. Lester has a very unique voice. If this is his actual voice, then it could be kind of mean-spirited to make fun of him, so I will let you do that in your own mind.
Are you sure this is the footage that Mr. Lidecker was watching just before he was murdered?
Yes, I checked the real number myself. This is it.
Thank you, Mr. Lester.
My pleasure. And please give my regards to my nephew Norman, who almost never comes by for Friday night dinner anymore.
I'll tell him.
Jessica is viewing some unedited footage from the movie, specifically a heavy petting scene between Eve and that actor guy. I don't know his name, and I can't be bothered to look it up. Well, the point of the footage is to show that Eve and the actor are really into the make-out part of the scene and won't stop, despite the protests of the guy holding the slate.
Hey, come on, guys. Hey, come on, gotta go.
I guess the obvious conclusion is that they're taking the clam tram to Pound Town, and that made Jerry very wary. Jessica heads to the set so that she can hassle Scott Bennett, the actor guy. And this is why making an effort is ultimately unnecessary. Good things and sometimes random names come to those who wait.
It's so exciting to see my book come alive, and you are absolutely wonderful.
Yeah? Thanks. Say, could I give you an autographed picture? Just a little something to take back to Vermont with you?
Why, that's very thoughtful.
As he scribbles on his headshot, she pokes around in his gullible little mind. He tells her he anticipates that this awful garbage film will launch his career, and reveals that he too was not on good terms with Jerry.
There you are.
Oh, love and kisses, Scott Bennett. How nice. But wouldn't you rather give this to Eve?
What's that supposed to mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was under the impression that, you know, you were, what do they call it, an item? Is that the term?
Who told you about us?
Well, actually, Mr. Bennett, you did. Just now.
Boy, she really yanked the tablecloth out from under his emotional dishes, huh? And she looks pretty darn pleased with herself as he storms off. Jessica is fucking merciless. I think we're lucky that she's focused exclusively on justice getting. A bizarro world malevolent Jessica would be an unstoppable agent of chaos. I think I'm gonna write a Chaos Jessica fanfic. Erotic, of course. She outwits gods and fucks like a mountain falling down. Jessica then goes to the costume department and speaks with a lady called Eleanor.
You know, it must be so difficult to cope with those last-minute costume changes.
You have no idea, Mrs. Fletcher.
Oh, please, call me Jessica.
I'm Eleanor.
Jessica says some stuff, and then Eleanor says some stuff, and then I say some stuff, and the stuff I say is that the director is full of clam dip. He claimed that they were here in the dress barn at the time of the murder.
They left before the siren. I was alone when I heard it. It gave me goosebumps.
But they did leave together.
No, separately. I believe Miss Quintessa left first. Did it matter?
Yes, you whimsical ninny, it mattered very a lot. Jessica then employs weaponized flattery, and Eleanor permits her to dig through the detritus that passes for costumes in this show.
You know, I seem to recall a drawing of a drum majorette's costume.
That's the only costume that isn't here.
You wouldn't happen to know where it is, would you?
Well, I know who took it and never brought it back.
I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be a K at the end of the word back. At least I think.
Back.
Cut to Jessica pounding on the door of Eve's trailer. When nobody answers, she just kicks the door in and enters. Folks, here's some wasteland wisdom. To successfully kick a door open, you want your heel to land right next to the knob. Don't waste time rubbing around on it with your shoulder like they do in the movies. You'll just look like an asshole in front of the other scavengers. Don't ask. Imagine you're curb stomping a giant sewer crab, but he's holding a ceremonial glass for you to break because it's also your Jewish wedding. That's the level of force we're talking. One determined kick near the knob and the cutout for the latch will splinter, then you and your friends will be free to steal all the guns from that religious fanatic's unsanctioned armory. Wistful sigh. As Jessica moves towards the closet, a person bursts out covered in clothing. As in, besides the clothes that they're wearing, they have extra clothes on all over. The mystery individual plows through Jessica and flees the trailer. Jessica hustles out after them and yells for someone to stop and or catch the bad person. Well, Norman, the apprentice lawyer, happens to be coming around the corner at that exact fucking moment. What luck. He somehow manages to drag the murderer to the ground despite his being a bit of a wiener. And then several police cars show up, in that exact spot in the middle of the studio at that exact moment.
What luck!
And because this is geriatric Scooby-Doo, we get a big reveal as the superfluous clothing is removed. Unfortunately, it turns out to be Ross, the director. And that's unfortunate because that means the writing really is bad. Although I guess that was obvious considering the scene that just took place. After one of the police officers helps Hernandez out of his car seat, he comes over to speak with Jessica.
What happened? Well, Mr. Haley was hiding in Eve's dressing room, and when I surprised him, he shoved me aside and ran out the door.
All right, search him. You can't search me. I didn't do anything.
All right. Listen, he's got a point. I don't need any problems with the Supreme Court.
Lieutenant, he knocked me off my feet.
Oh, that's right. That's felonious assault. Search him, Brody.
All right, against the car. Assume the position. Spread your feet.
Now, what
Hands on the hood.
Well, I went into his dressing room because I was searching for the costume. Hoped that if I could find
Lieutenant?
Hey, the gold button. Isn't this the button that you saw next to Jerry Lidecker's dead body?
That's it. It has the same design.
Well, that's good enough for me.
The writers of this episode don't seem to understand how police work. You can't search me because I'm innocent. Aw, dang, if he says he's innocent, then he must be. I don't want to get yelled at by the Supreme Court. It's like they watched an episode of a police procedural while drunk one time and decided that was sufficient research. You know, before the big oopsie, the police in my universe had basically become a well-funded gang whose entire purpose was to provide new blood for a sort of prison industrial complex. They were also especially talented at disenfranchising people of color and getting away with murder. Thankfully, this show's old and Ross is white, which means that innocent until proven guilty is still an actual thing at this point, rather than some sort of collectively misremembered legend of yore. Norman congratulates Jessica on saving the day, as well as her own ass. She asks him if he found the information she wanted, and then he literally reads off a bunch of exposition.
Mrs. Fletcher, you did it. You uncovered the real killer and got yourself off the hook.
Well, Lieutenant Hernandez seems to be of the same opinion. Now, Norman, did you get the information that I want?
Oh, yes, ma'am, and you were dead on. Listen to this. Ross Haley mortgaged his house on a couple of bad option deals. He is overextended in every direction and deeply in debt. That's why he had to make this his picture. He wanted to get credit for a hit.
And the rest?
The rest?
The rest, Norman.
Oh, yeah, the rest. That's right here. Alan Gebhardt successfully kicks drugs, but is still having a problem with alcohol. Eve Crystal has diabetes mellitus and takes oral medication.
And Marta Quintessa?
Oh, well, she used to be Jerry Lidecker's mistress and once threatened to turn him into shish kebab for fooling around with younger women.
Norman suggests that they should throw a party to celebrate. So they throw a party. I would have thrown this party straight into the trash, but they throw it at the beach bungalow. Except Norman isn't even there, so why was he the one to suggest this? The party's non-Jessica attendees include Marta, Alan, Eve, and Scott. This is the second episode to feature a gathering of characters who don't really like one another, pretending to like one another, because the ending needs them to be in the same room for a while. Jessica proposes that they do a round of toasts. Alan toasted the movie, which is cancelled now that the director is incarcerated, which is a silly word because in Latin it means to be trapped within a crab. I'm pretty sure. Don't email me. I'm also pretty sure that a film studio would find another director rather than defenestrate a bunch of money, but don't email me about that either. Marta sarcastically toasts to Jerry and Eve interjects.
You know, it's easy for us to make fun of him, but he really wasn't such a terrible person.
Oh, tell me about it, darling.
He was always kind to me.
Well, I'll drink to that.
I might choke drinking to Jerry. I prefer to drink to your toast.
Well, you might choke on my toast, too, Alan. To Ross Haley, a man wrongfully accused of murder.
I have to be going. I have decisions to make about my life. New places, new people. And anyway, I may get married.
I have to go, too. Not that this hasn't been fun. Tomorrow morning, I'm starting a new screenplay to try to restore my self-esteem.
Well, I hope you'll send me a copy if it's not too much trouble.
No trouble at all. Just don't make a book out of it and do to me what I did to you.
I promise.
I refuse to say goodbye to you, Jess.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
More champagne?
No, I want to look good in the morning. I have a breakfast meeting with a guy from the TV network who wants me to star in a new series.
Great, tell me about it.
Well, there's nothing to tell, just another series. Look, I gotta go work out. In fact, I'm running late for my health club appointment now.
Scott, don't go.
Look, I gotta stay in shape. That's showbiz. Look, I'll call you. I really will. I'll call you.
Aw, dang, look at the time. I better mosey on home. I've got an appointment at gym with my doctor, who's called Jim, and we're writing a screenplay with my I'm sick. Okay, bye. And then there were two, specifically one human woman and one immortal harbinger of discomfiture, which has taken the form of a woman. As she backs Eve into a corner, Jessica's eyes are basically glowing with righteous indignation and scorn.
Did you, really have to say that about Ross?
It's true, you know. He didn't kill Jerry Lidecker.
He was arrested.
Oh, he committed a crime. He removed evidence from the scene of the murder. And according to his confession with the police, while I was trying to make myself understood to the security guard, he came onto the stage by another entrance and found the body. He also found a gold button from a costume. He knew at once who had killed the producer, but he wanted to protect that person, to finish the picture. So he took the button and removed the fingerprints from the urn and left the same way that he'd come in.
Well, folks, they got me. The director's obviously suspect behavior was a misdirect, and I fell for it. The writing still sucks, though. But I was wrong about this one specific thing. I guess I could edit the script to hide my shame, but I won't. To be clear, this is not because I'm a good or honest person. It's because I am both lazy and self-aware enough to know that I'm an idiot, and would almost certainly miss some shred of evidence and further embarrass myself. And ultimately, it's not in the spirit of this show. Instead, I will willingly turn myself over to the authorities. In this case, the authorities are you, my dear, sweet, and probably nubile listeners. My ass has been bared, and I am ready to be shamed. You can shame me by email at SFTWTHMY@hotmail.com or via YouTube by searching SFTWTHMY podcast and leaving a comment. While there, you can really drive the shame home by liking, favoriting, and subscribing. Tell your friends and family to shame me as well. I am a foolish person and deserve to be told so. And I vow to look upon each and every comment, enshrining them in memory to serve as an eternal monument to my own fallibility. Anyway, Eve claims she doesn't know what Jessica is on about. So Jessica slaps her around a bit and points out that Jerry viewed the footage of Eve and Scott finger-banging just before his murder. Eve insists she doesn't know anything about it, so Jessica gives her a little taste of slap sandwich. It's got prosciutto and slap lami on it. Eve begins to cry and says that she thought Jessica was her friend. Jessica deploys a very sinister smile, which is especially upsetting with her tooth missing. Then she spits in Eve's face, but she does it without unclenching her jaw. She somehow propels the spit out through the gap in her teeth. Then the camera zooms in on the gap, and we see Jessica's tongue lashing around wildly back there. Then we get the reverse shot of Eve staring at Jessica with a look of terror and or disgust on her face. So Eve makes the seemingly inescapable decision to come clean.
Jerry told me he wanted to drop Scott from the film. Only a few of his scenes have been shot so they could be restaged with another actor at no great financial loss. Jerry's words. It would have ruined his career. I begged Jerry not to do it, but he just laughed. Don't you see, I had to do something to stop him. I grabbed the nearest things I could get my hand on, a heavy urn. He was going to spread the word that Scott had been fired because he was trouble. Didn't bother to learn his lines. He never showed up at the set on time. I didn't know I lost a button. I just ran to the car and drove here in my costume.
Well, that's why Ross Haley couldn't find your costume in your dressing room closet. He was trying to return the button when I walked in on him.
Protecting me?
No, not you, Eve. His picture. He desperately needed a success. Even a dreary second-hand success.
In summary, Jerry confronted Eve and told her he was going to fire Scott and ruin his non-existent career. So she did what any reasonably murderous person would have done and bonked him on the head till he was dead. And then Scott covered it up for his own misguided reasons. In other words, they were all under the shared delusion that this was going to be their one-way ticket to Success Station, baby.
Do you want me to make the phone call?
You know, it's funny. Never wanted to be a movie star. It was all Jerry's idea. I would have done anything for him. Jerry? Scott? I sure know how to pick them, don't I, Mrs. Fletcher?
Well, that's it, I guess. It really just ends right there on that weird, dismal note. Every episode so far has had a denouement of some sort, or at least an upbeat final moment, or something. Anything. I guess they ran out of time, or money, or lost the footage, or I don't know. Also, what the fuck are you talking about, lady? You would have done anything for him? How about not having an affair, or sparing his life? Would you have done that? Huh? Well, whatever. Jessica has once again solved the mystery and confronted the killer, by herself, with no one to help her should the murderer decide not to give themselves up willingly. The idea that Jessica is an immortal being of some kind has merit. I mean, she definitely has zero concern for her personal safety. She also seems to enjoy toying with puny mortal minds. The main problem is that I've already got her doing a whole conspiracy thing, and I don't know how many meta-narratives I can juggle simultaneously. For the time being, let's just wait and see. I will now tell you why this episode sucked.
Wank.
The writing was really half-assed and lazy. Besides the red herring of the director's suspiciousness, which was really like a light red or even a pink herring because he did do some crimes, the story was basically a series of plot points glued together with exposition dumps and absurdly convenient coincidences. When the story needed Jessica to get exposition from Alan the screenwriter, she just shows up at the studio and finds him at that exact moment. Jessica was there when Jerry banned Alan from coming back, and she only found out that he was back on the project when he tells her himself. So Jessica had no way of knowing he would even be there, but she just happens to be in the exact spot where he pulls up. It's also completely absurd that Norman the lawyer has an uncle working at this exact studio on this exact project and willing to risk his job helping a lady he's never met. And when the director flees the trailer, Norman is right there to stop him. And then the cops show up out of nowhere. Several cop cars with their sirens on descend on that specific spot at that exact moment. Who called them? Why are they there? It's also pretty darn convenient that the director had that incriminating button on his person, since, he was in Eve's trailer specifically to put it back. So why didn't he just do that? Jessica knocked and waited a bit before entering. He could have just taken it out of his pocket and dropped it there. He didn't even really need to hide. He's the director. He could have made up an excuse for being there, and Jessica wouldn't have had any evidence to disprove it. They didn't bother to justify or explain any of this. It just happens. Detective Hernandez is another thing that just happens. They wanted to build tension by making Jessica the prime suspect, but they also needed her to run around solving the mystery. So they created the most ridiculous, unrealistic police detective ever. He immediately believes that she's innocent and starts confiding in her and asking for advice. And when he drags her to the police station, he just lets her go again. He also didn't seem to be doing any actual investigation himself. If he had, it would have been immediately obvious that 3 other people had actual probable motives for killing Jerry. So why is everyone so fucking certain it's Jessica? Because drama! Overall, this episode was kind of bad, but not bad in a funny good way like the previous episodes. It was bad in a frustrating, I don't want to watch no more of this sort of way. Besides the plot, the acting was weird. Considering what they had to work with, the actors did fine, but the writing required a lot of inconsistent behavior, particularly on the part of Angela Lansbury. In the scene where the guard finds her with the body, she suddenly starts acting flustered and suspicious, tripping over words and incapable of explaining herself. But that's completely unlike her. Jessica is extremely conscious of language and chooses her words very carefully, and she's remained calm and collected in far more intense situations, as seen in every single episode so far, and even later on in this episode. I mean, she confronts a murderer at the end every single time. This episode also seems to be an attempt to make some sort of statement or critique of Hollywood showbiz types, but in a way that appealed to old person sentiments, particularly their desire for less sexy dancing, I guess. The whole presentation was very lackluster and low energy. I mean, besides the awful song, which invigorated me with loathing. Besides that, it seemed like every scene was filmed right before their lunch break or something. No one, including Angela, was especially energetic in their delivery or convincing in their portrayal of human emotions. I'll conclude with my biggest complaint, which is, they cut the single greatest line I've yet heard from this program. Every episode begins with a short montage of the episode, the one you're about to watch. I don't understand why this is the case or what their intention was. You'd think they would be used at the end of the previous episode as a preview for next week's show, which is how I'm using them, but no. Regardless, there is a line in this episode's montage which is not actually in the episode for some reason. It's from the scene at the beginning where Jessica is told to buzz off by the lawyer guy. Here's the line that was used.
What do I know about the picture? Well, it's guaranteed box office magic, that's all.
And here's the line from the montage.
What do I know about the picture? It's a high school horror film with sexy dances.
I mean, that's way better. That may be the best synopsis I've ever heard. Why was it changed? Why use it in the montage but not the episode? I don't understand. It's a mystery. Well, the important thing is that this episode has helped me come to a decision regarding BC Day. And my decision is, nah, I ain't going. The fact of the matter is, I'm a different person now. A person who watches and critiques Murder, She Wrote. For fun. And that means I'm a person that no one in their right mind would want to talk to. And I'm okay with that. I made the decision to become this person, because I felt alone even among friends, and consciously or unconsciously, I sought fulfillment from within. Plus, I became pretty delusional after... Still, I think leaving was the correct choice in the long run. And more importantly, this show has revealed a technique by which I can let go of my past. And that technique is to convince myself that I'm living in an episodic television show where past episodes have almost no bearing on future ones. Just because this episode was shit doesn't mean the next will be. Sure, there'll be other awful episodes, but maybe some of them will be okay. And with that in mind, I've examined my own past. Some of my episodes were good, and some were bad, but going back to the commune for BC Day would almost certainly be a garbage episode. I'm too weird now, and it would be really awkward, and I'm pretty sure my dialogue would be poorly written. And that's just not an episode I would want to watch. Also, BC Day is pretty boring now. The whole siege thing petered out once word got around that we were aggressively principled. All the bigots moved out of crusading range. I guess, relatively speaking, that was the ultimate goal, but peace isn't much fun. The holiday turned into like an educational parade. Everyone dressed up in redneck period costumes, and there were reenactments and history discussions. We also did a lot of paper mache, mostly effigies for burning. One year, I helped make a scale paper mache pickup truck, which was pretty fun, really. But I got kind of carried away with the truck nuts. They were way too big and way too hairy. Anyway, that's not enough of a reason to go back. I mean, I can make truck nuts right here in this hut. But why? They're a symbol of ignorance, and I don't need to be reminded of that because people have always been ignorant. Would JB craft some truck nuts? Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out next week because I'm tired of speaking. If you somehow enjoyed this, please leave a review somewhere. If you have complaints, you can contact me at SFTWTHMY@hotmail.com. Well, that's it. Okay. I love you, bye. Next week on She's Fixin' to Write This Here Murder, y'all.
You cannot possibly believe that a dog is capable of murder.
Selfish relatives. All they ever wanted from him was his money. This is insane. Teddy's a dog.
Teddy's gone completely mad. He went for my horse and then me.
Oh, my God. There goes the will.
Over my dead body.
I have little use for theories, private or otherwise.
The first real ghost, no one will believe me.
Which means that the killer had to be someone in this house.
you